first human institution that God ordained was that of marriage, and he did so in the garden. First, he created man. His name was Adam. And then after Adam saw from all the other creatures of the creation that there was none suitable for him as a companion, God put Adam to sleep, took a rib from his side, formed and shaped woman from that rib, and she was to come alongside of him and to be a helpmeet. One man, one woman in the beginning. They were to be fruitful and multiply. From their loins they would produce children, and those children would grow up and start new family units. Procreation. My friends, I want to tell you something. It's tough to stay married today. It always has been, but especially today. But one of the things that you and I can do to stay close to our spouses, to our husbands and to our wives, is as believers, keep the Lord number one. Stay in His Word, stay in fellowship, right fellowship with Him. Continue to examine ourselves, confess sin, get it out of our lives, and as we draw close to the Lord, if each person in that marriage relationship does that, they will automatically draw close to one another. Oftentimes, we have to learn to fight for our marriage, and to do that, we have to learn how to fight right among ourselves. Now, I'm using that term fight in a broad sense today. I don't literally mean fight, but we do have differences. Even though we have the major issues of our life that we align with, the Bible does say not to be unequally yoked together with an unbeliever. So if two believers are married, then the first thing that they ought to have that they agree on is that they're going to serve the Lord, that they believe the Bible, that they're going to believe what the Bible teaches. And if they do that, those major issues are going to be settled. But beyond that, God did make us different. In fact, we often will marry someone else who is strong in areas that we're weak in to compensate for our weaknesses. And I think God puts two together in that way so that we will become one flesh and we will develop and be all that we can be for the glory of God. Nevertheless, we have to learn how to deal with our disagreements and sometimes those arguments that we find ourselves in. To do that, we need to agree on the rules for fighting. Let me suggest some to you this morning. With your husband or with your wife, learn to never hit below the belt. And you know what I mean by that. There are some sensitive areas that you know in your wife's life or your husband's life that if you were to say that certain thing to them, then you would hurt them deeply. They would not be able to get over that very soon. So learn not to hit below the belt and learn where your spouse's belt is. Pick the right time to fight and the right place for those disagreements to be discussed. Learn which hills are only worth dying on. You know, there's so many things that we fuss and fight over that just aren't worth the effort, the trouble, and the damage that comes from those disagreements. Never walk out of an argument except to let things cool off, to have a timeout, so to speak, if things get out of hand. Kick the word divorce out of your marriage vocabulary. Be committed to the Lord and to the concept of marriage, and that you're committed to staying married no matter what. You're going to be faithful and true to one another. And last but not least, end every argument with a reaffirmation of your love and your commitment to one another. Can I confess to you that I've never done all of those things consistently in my life, but I'm learning to do those things even now at this age that I am as I speak. Over in the book of Ephesians chapter 5, the Lord tells wives to be willing to serve your husbands the same as the Lord. And what that means is what God had ordained in the beginning for you to be a helpmate to your husband, to be an encourager, to be a comforter, to come along beside him. Continue to do that. And then he tells husbands, listen, love your wives in the same way that Christ loved the church and gave his life for it. How did Jesus do that? My friends, he did that by going to the cross for his people, for his church. He died for you and for me. He was willing to sacrifice his life. And indeed, men, that's what God has called us to be. Providers, protectors, and those that would sacrifice their lives for the well-being of their wives and their children. You know what? That's what God has put within each one of us. Let me encourage you in your marriage today. Stay close to the Lord, and as you do that, you'll stay close to one another. God bless you.